We're jumping right in with my 2.5 RS and we are turning into a 22B. This car is the most clapped out Subaru I think I actually have ever bought. It's probably the most clapped out I think I've seen in person and actually worked on. This car is disgusting. Dude, there's so much to do. So we recently picked up this 1998 2.5 RS and it is definitely a clapper. The entire side of this car has been sideswiped and is actually covered all in Bondo. As you guys see, I've already started chipping away as much as I can right here, but it doesn't really matter too much. That entire panel is gonna be cut out for our 22B wide body kit. So I am curious though, how far that Bondo actually stretches. The exhaust hangs pretty much on the ground underneath of this thing. The inside of the car is really only the nice thing that's somewhat decent in here. It does have a 2002 WRX carpet, GR WRX seats. Pretty much all of this is gonna be gone. And with this thing being a 2.5 RS, it doesn't even have a 2.5 liter in here. It's an EJ22, it's not even a good one. It's a single overhead cam EJ22. So today we're gonna get that engine out, we're gonna get that transmission out, we're gonna get the axles out, we're probably gonna start stripping down the body, get the fenders off, the bumpers off. Anything that we're not gonna be reusing is coming off of this car and either going to the bin or going to a good home. So let's whip this car around and get it pulled in the shop and start stripping this thing down. We'll start out with the engine, then probably the trans. Those are pretty easy. I guess just go from there, start stripping down the body, fenders, hoods, bumpers, all that stuff. No brakes. Levi can speak for how strong the brakes are on this car.
What brakes, man? You literally push the pedal, it goes straight to the floor.
Right? The black ice, dude. It's almost there.
Dude, I'm surprised they went in reverse without grinding.
It makes a lot of weird noises. Is that pretty center? No,
No, not at all, dude. There it is.
That's so not centered. It's so bad.
I think this is the worst shit box you ever bought, bud.
It's probably the worst car I think I've ever bought, and I feel like I overpaid for it.
You definitely overpaid for it.
3K for this piece of shit. How much would you buy? This is a $500 car max. Max. All right, let's get this thing up on the lift. Let's start getting the engine out. I guess we can start with taking the hood off so that way we have more room in the engine bay. Hey, you wanna make a bet? I bet you all the pinch welds are f***ed. I bet you every single pinch weld on this car is bent and rusty and destroyed.
Coffee? Is that what we're going on?
I'll bet you a coffee.
We'll bet you a coffee?
I'll bet you a coffee that all 4 pinch welds.
I'm gonna give it that there's probably just a couple of inches in the middle.
All the corners, all of the corners where you would normally go.
I'll take that bet, but
I'm saying all 4 of them are screwed. Pinch up, there's one. There's one that's screwed and rusty. There's 2 and rusty. Come on, baby, number 3. And number, oh yeah, dude, they're all gone. All of them are gone. Doesn't matter where they go, what they came off of, they all go in the back.
Yep, hold this hood.
You got it? This is the only good thing about this car. This hood. Or the jack. The swing arms under there. Oh, lovely. Is it so low? It's so low we got jacked up. To the butthole. That did that.
Dude, they literally just murdered only the corners.
Dude, that's what people do. I don't understand how people do this. I think this is actually the worst one. Look at this exhaust. First of all, there's not even a nut on that. Second of all, massive exhaust leak right here. Coming back, exhaust hanger, old exhaust hanger. This thing dips down like a, look, that's so far away from the body. Comes up, so who built this?
Dude, look at this.
Who did this? What did they stick weld this? My favorite is this exhaust hanger that's held on with just a tack weld. That's my favorite part.
I like how the exhaust tip doesn't even stick out.
All right, I guess I'll start taking the exhaust off, and you want to start pulling fluids out?
Yeah, sure.
We're gonna do all fluids: diff, trans, engine, coolant. She's a little leaky. She's a little hot. Probably is low on oil anyway. So.
Yeah, probably has like maybe a quart. What'd you do?
Just start ripping.
You don't got to tell me twice. That's all I need to know. There's no order. It didn't even have a 2.5 in it.
Yeah, 2.2. Which is still more displacement than the engine I took out of the other car, which is a 1.8. I mean, realistically, we're not really gonna... Ah!
Dear God!
Oh! Oh, God. Oh,
Dude! Over just a little bit so it doesn't... Oh God!
Science! I don't know, I'm not keeping the bumper of the headlights. Oh, there's a clip underneath the headlight right there. Huh?
Okay.
Science!
Not even connected, no
I
headlights.
hit my head. That's why I didn't turn on. I don't know, dude. I don't know what half this stuff is.
Look at this 10, why would they grind it down like that?
We just jumped into tearing this thing apart, not really having like a starting point. The whole goal right now is just to get any and everything out of the way to see what we're working with. So I decided to go around, start pulling all the little accessories off, start cleaning up any dirt, rust, anything like that that I could with the vacuum, pulling off the fenders, pulling off the cowls, and just seeing how bad this chassis actually was. We're looking pretty good so far. There is some rot, but that's to be anticipated. Right by the battery, we do have a couple holes going through the chassis. It's not a big deal. We are going to relocate the battery to the trunk. So what we'll end up doing is just cut out this sheet metal. We may replace it with some new, we may not. I don't quite know yet, but the actual frame of the car is looking pretty good right now. We knew that there was some rust down on the actual pinch welds and near the bottom of the car, like right up there, which I can weld some of that back up. That's not a huge deal. As long as the structural integrity of the chassis itself is still there, that's really all we're shooting for here. And as long as it's not eaten through, bent, damaged, anything like that. Both front fenders are off. Levi's pulling out the starter right now so that way we can get the engine up and out of here, give us some more room. We're essentially gonna strip this down to make it a rolling shell. That's literally all we're trying to do. The doors will come off, the brakes can come off, the brake fluid can come off, the brake booster can come off, all that can come off. And pretty much all we're gonna do is leave the subframes, leave the hubs, so that way this thing can roll. It's really all we need. I would like to pull the glass. I actually do have a glass removal kit. I might try to pull this windshield. It's gonna get damaged. I already know it's already broken, so it's not like it, it's not like it matters. But I would rather not break a windshield if I don't have to. So that's actually what I'm gonna jump on real quick. I'm gonna start pulling the, actually I'm not, I'm gonna wait till we have the dash and everything out first. I'm just gonna go in here with my scraper tool and scrape all this off. I just want the dash out before we do that so that way we don't damage the dash. We'll wait to do that, but we'll keep focusing on the engine bay. So I'm gonna go through, start removing a little bit more of the accessories. Levi's pulling out the starter and a couple other small things to get this thing out of here. We still have to do the trans and everything, but that should be pretty easy. I mentioned it in the last video, these naturally aspirated engines are miles easier to pull out than the turbo models. There's only 4 bell housing bolts. You've got the fuel lines, the engine harness, the air box, and that's pretty much it for the most part. Anything that's really connected to the engine, just get it out of the way. There's really not too much in there. Engine is disconnected, ready to come out. This one was a little bit more sticky than the last one that we pulled out. Both physically sticky, because the engine itself is sticky, and it just didn't want to come out. ABS module is disconnected, brake lines are disconnected from the brake bias up here. All the brake lines are gonna have to come out. When we repaint this, we're gonna do it the exact same way we did the RX-7, bare bones chassis. Once we have the engine, the drivetrain, and all that out, we'll probably move to the doors, the trunk. I wanna get this thing to as much of a rolling shell as we can. Isn't that right? Oh yeah, all the way. So let's get this engine out the way. Once we get the engine out of the way, we'll see what we're working with in the engine bay. So far, the engine bay doesn't look really rusty at all, except for the battery tray. That's really, is that supposed to be bent in like that? Maybe it's, oh, okay. I think that's supposed to be that way then. Both sides are symmetrical, so I'm assuming it's supposed to be like that. We'll figure it out. If that was damaged, I'd assume that the core support would be damaged. I don't see any damage on the core support, so I'm assuming it's supposed to be like that. The engine out, now we gotta get the axles out before we can take the trans out. On the last Impreza I just did, I could not get the axle out without cutting it. There's a roll pin inside of a roll pin. You guys can see Levi's knocking them. Roll pin. So both the roll pins hold the axles into the transmission, and if you leave those in, you'll never get them out. And on the last car, they were mushroomed in so they wouldn't come out. So you got what? Did you get them both or just one side?
It's both.
For both sides?
No, just one.
Okay, so we have one axle undone. One more to do. I'm gonna start pulling off the brakes and everything like that. We're essentially just leaving this thing as a rolling car. So brakes are gonna come off, axles out, transmission out, everything that we can pull off this thing right now. So we wanted to get the transmission out. Now on the last Impreza, like I said, I couldn't get the axles out, so I had to cut them off. Thankfully, we were able to get them out this time, which made it a lot easier. We had to take out the drive shaft, the axles, the pitch stop. Once all of that is out for the most part, you just hop in the car, you undo the 6 screws that hold the shifter in place, and then you can just kind of pull out the transmission from there. It's not too hard. I hopped up in the car to start getting that stuff unbolted. My buddies jumped underneath the car and they just manhandled the transmission out. Engine and transmission are out. That's probably the worst of what we need to strip off of this car. It was quite messy. As you can see, there's literally caked up gunk all over the subframe. That's pretty much what everything looked like. But with the engine out, we get a little bit better of a view of the rot, and it's really just isolated to where the battery was. Everything else looks pretty solid, to be honest. So we may have to do some metal repair in this area, which is totally fine. Once we get all that wire wheeled and cleaned up and whatnot, we'll kind of see what we're working with there, but that will save for a little bit. We could tub everything. That would just fix all that, but not gonna stress that right now. We are actually going to jump to stripping more panels. Rear bumper, trunk, wing, tail lights, everything on the rear end, we're gonna get that off. Once we get the rear end stripped down, we're gonna jump up to the interior, get the doors off, get the seats out, get the dash out, and really just get this thing down to a bare bones shell, so that way we can really see what we're working with here. So I have absolutely no idea how to take the bumper off. Trunk should be pretty easy, taillight should be pretty easy. Once we get those two off, we'll jump to the bumper, get that thing off, and I really just want to get this thing stripped down fully. Tearing the rear part of the car apart really wasn't bad. The taillights have about 5 8mm bolts each. The bumper just kind of fell off, but it did have a couple of the clips for the license plate lights. And then the bumper support beam just had some bolts inside of the trunk that was holding it on. Anything that's like rusty or old metal wise is all getting sent to powder coat, and it's all gonna get cleaned up before getting put back on the car. The rear end is pretty much all torn apart now. Rear bumper off, rear crash beam out, tail lights out. There's evidently no major rust in here, which is a good sign. There is definitely surface rust going around, especially in spots where water may pool up, but there's nothing that feels like it is structurally going to be a detriment to us. There is one spot along the trunk seal right here that needs a little bit of love, but aside from that, there's no rust going around here. So overall, it's looking like the car's got some good bones to it, which is really just what we need. Up inside, we've got the seats out. Levi's chilling in here right now. Center console's out, so we're starting to strip down the interior a little bit more. We're probably gonna jump to pulling the doors off next, just to make the interior stuff a little bit easier, and to get these out of the way, we need to take the mirrors off, door cards off, set all of that aside. Then we'll undo the electrical harness that passes through the body there, that goes into the chassis, unbolt the door, set those over there. We're gonna have to do some cleanup tonight. I wanna try to get the windshield out. I don't wanna do it up until the dash comes out because I have an electric scraper tool that's gonna go around in here. I also wanna see how bad all of this is going to be because this does not look like it's going to be a good time. I'm hoping and praying that we can easily clean that up. It doesn't even have a weather seal right here anymore, which is probably why all that rust built up. So it's whatever. Let's get the doors off, interior stripped down, and then at that point maybe try to get this windshield out. When it comes to stripping the interior apart out of Subarus, it's pretty easy and it's pretty self-explanatory. Glove box comes out, center console comes out, anything around the dash comes out, and then the dash itself is really the last thing to come out. Normally it's held in with a couple of 10s and 12mm bolts securing it to the frame, and then there's normally two 10mm bolts up in the top of the cowl for the actual dash that bolts to the chassis, and then normally it just comes right out. But we're gonna leave the dash in for right now and focus on everything else around it. So we're about to drain the fuel tank. We've stripped the interior out a decent bit. Levi's playing guess and check for which wire is for power and ground for the fuel pump. Up here I've got a fuel container and then just a hose routed from the feed line. going into it, so that way we can just collect all the old fuel, and we'll just let the fuel pump run until we hear that the fuel pump is just kind of running dry. So that way we can get all of the fuel out of this thing, because the last thing we want is to let this, I mean, it's already sat for 4 years with fuel in it, so what's really the worst that's gonna happen? But we still need to get the fuel out of there. Now it's just pumping all the fuel into there. Look at that. We'll drain the tank. You did it.
How bad's that fuel?
Doesn't look too bad. I'll probably throw it in the Tacoma. Looks fine. Looks like gas. It's free gas.
It's a Tacoma.
Yeah, so. Tacoma will run on anything, man. So let's let that fill up. Ooh, that's kind of brown, actually.
Yeah.
Tacoma will be fine. I'll put some fuel system cleaner in with it.
I feel like he filled it up with good gas, and then what was left over was just in there.
Said we had about a half a tank in it, and you know, I actually kind of believe the dash. Half a tank of fuel in this is probably 8 gallons, 7 or 8 gallons, probably.
No, that's a GC.
Does your Tacoma need gas?
Could put it in the rental.
There's probably more than enough for both of them.
I hate those dudes. Oh, Tanner.
I do. I don't like those pliers.
Yeah, well, I don't like that your Subaru smells like cat pee.
That's alright. The door shut. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not doing anything at this moment. Here.
It's on that sharp spot.
Hey, how much easier it is to work now? That's going in the garbage.
I'd probably leave the cat pee carpet in there for just a little
No,
longer.
I want to see what's under the carpet. I actually need to see what's under the carpet to see if it's bad or not.
All right, well, let's get these bolts and shit out of the way.
That can go in the garbage pile.
Carpet?
Honestly, the floor looks half decent. Any 30-year-old car, stripping the interior out, you have to be very careful pulling those plastic panels out because they are prone to breaking, especially with a lot of the stuff for this car being discontinued. We want to try to hold on to as much of the good plastics as we can. After getting most of the interior stripped down, we wanted to get the windshield out just to see how bad the rust was on the A-pillar. I've been using a multi-tool with a scraper blade and it seems to work pretty well. Granted, this windshield already is broken. It's gonna get a little bit more damaged. We got the RS pretty heavily stripped down and got the windshield out. The windshield needed to come out so that way we could see how bad the rust was on the A-pillar and on the roof line. And what I think I'm gonna do is delete the sunroof on the RS and put a carbon fiber roof on here. I've never done that before. I know you drill up the spot welds, you can take the old roof off and then you seam seal on, or not seam seal, you panel bond a carbon roof onto it. We may do that. Everything we did in this video is absolutely huge. This was a running and driving car yesterday when we started the teardown on this, and having all of the panels off, having everything out of the way for the most part is a good step forward because it allows us to see the areas that we need to focus on. The A-pillars have a heavy amount of rust. Not like detrimental scrap the chassis style type of rust, but enough to where we need to fix this. Ooh, the lights flickered, we might lose power. Coming all the way down here. Battery tray, we already knew that this was rusty. So I think what we're gonna do here is actually cut all this out and put my oil sump tank for the dry sump in this area. I don't know if I love it being in the front of the car because if we have like a front end incident, it'll take out the sump and then take out the engine. So I don't know if I actually want to keep it there. Regardless, that's gonna have to get cut out and something's gonna have to go there. Up here is probably the worst of the rust on the car along this entire A-pillar going all the way up. Now this going all the way across, all rust. So I think what we may actually do is just cut the roof off of this and then panel bond a carbon fiber roof on. I think that actually might be the move here. This, I feel like I can wire wheel. We can use some of that stop rust stuff to clean up all of that to prevent any more rust from coming. There is no rust on any of the frame rails. We already know that there's some rust on this panel here as we've already seen it underneath this Bondo. I don't know how far this Bondo stretches yet. I'm gonna have the rear glass and the quarter glass is removed by a professional. I'll probably hit him up soon to see when he can come out and remove all that stuff. Now, we did notice that apparently at official white boy underscore Q. No, it's at official underscore white boy underscore Q used to own this car. It's not the prior owner. It's definitely the one beforehand. We couldn't find him on Instagram. So if you are at official underscore white boy underscore Q, what did you do to this thing? Like I was saying, absolutely massive progress on the RS. In the next video, I want to start getting the last of the, or I want to finish up getting the rest of the stuff off of the chassis, harnesses, dash bar, all that out. I want to get the dash bar up to powder coat. I'm trying to, after doing a full resto on the RX-7, I learned a couple things that I'm going to implement on this car, which is anything that's got to go to powder coat, I'm going to just give it to him immediately versus just setting aside, so that way we're not waiting on stuff for powder coat. And just kind of like bulk tackling stuff versus independently trying to do it like I did on the RX-7. That way, I feel like we'll have a much more uniform flow for work, if that makes sense. It just makes more sense to me. I'm gonna pick up some dry ice. We're gonna get out all of the old sound deadening, because I do, like I said, when I repaint this thing, I wanna do it the same way I did the RX-7, where it's the entire chassis and it's not just what you see. We do have paint on the way. We are gonna be painting this car. Funny enough, World Rally Blue, which just seems to be the most common, but if you're doing a 22B replica, I feel like the car has to be World Rally Blue. Especially, I mean, they look so good World Rally Blue, so I think it'll look good when it's done. So game plan for next video, start tackling the rust problems, start removing the sound deadening, hope to the Lord that there's no rust underneath the sound deadening. Either get the dash out, get the last of the stuff out, and start cleaning this thing up so that way we can start prepping the body to be saved. Because, I mean, if we can save a high mileage, rusty, beat to poop GM6, I'm all about it. So with that, that's all I've got for you guys on this one for the first, I guess, official video of the 22B build. If you're hyped for it, if you're excited for it, if you guys got any suggestions for what you want to see on it, go ahead and hit that like button, turn to black, blue, green, purple, silver, site, and let me know down below. But with that, I will catch you guys. Oh no, and if you're not subscribed and you want to be, I'll put it in one of these corners. No idea which one quite yet, but with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. So peace out, homies.